I had to advocate so hard for a breast pump. I would ask one nurse and they would tell me, oh, I'll ask someone else. And so I had to finally like get out of the bed, barely able to stand up straight, and walk out of my room to like the nurse's station and be like, I want a breast pump.
Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jamie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea and let's dive in. I've got Amber here with me. Amber is another IBCLC and a good friend, and she's going to share her story of teen parenthood and breastfeeding and how she became an IBCLC and how important this work really is. So, Amber, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Nice. Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on here. My name is Amber Ginn. I, of course, am a board certified lactation consultant in private practice. I'm a mom of 2 and I run a virtual lactation practice. I had my first kiddo very young, which I think is what we're going to talk about. So I'll save that. But I really love getting to work with moms. I think lactation care is so, so important. So I'm so glad that you have this podcast because it's a great way for moms to get more information about how they can get support.
Yeah, no, and I so appreciate you. So, for people who don't know Amber, she is like amazing and she just has this amazing thriving practice. She helps so many moms, which is just so it's inspiring. It's really inspiring what you do. So many lactation consultants come into this work because of their personal experiences, right? We realize how important that support is when we didn't have it. So, I love hearing stories from moms who really it sounds like I'm gonna say I love hearing people struggle, but I love hearing people who really, really struggled and then use that as fuel and fire to do something good in the world and to change the world. So I know that's kind of what your story is. So start at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. So when I was 15 years old, I found out I was pregnant. Obviously, that was not on my like vision board for that year. It came as a surprise. I feel like when people say surprise, I mean, if you have unprotected sex, you could have a baby. So, not surprise per se, but definitely not what I was intending. I remember telling my mom, and she was so upset. I was definitely one of the like golden child type people in my family. Between me and my sister, I was the oldest. I was always the one who got, my sister's very bright too, but I was very driven, always got good grades, all that good stuff. And so it was a very big blow to my mom, who was like, she's going to be the one who finally gets to go to college in our family kind of thing. So my mom's like, you'll have to stay in school. So that was a big thing. I was like, all right, I'm going to stay in school. So I wasn't thinking about any of the, the stuff of motherhood or birth or breastfeeding at first. I was just like, all right, I've got to, go into survival mode here and get through just being pregnant. But after that initial shock wore off, being the type of person I am, I wanted to read all of the books and understand all of the things about birth. And I think, like a lot of moms do, whether they're 15 or 40, doesn't matter. We spend so much time obsessing about birth and our birth plan that we don't think about breastfeeding at all. And I definitely fell victim to that. I wanted to have a natural birth and I had all these things. Everyone in my family thought that was hilarious and that I was definitely not going to get to have that. I don't know if it's okay for me to go into too much detail, but
Yeah,
I
tell us everything you
okay.
want to tell us.
Okay. So towards the end of my pregnancy, I started having symptoms of preeclampsia. And being the type of person I am, I researched it and I printed off my little fact sheet about it and I brought it to my obstetrician. And that day, unfortunately, there was a med student, I guess a resident or however, I don't know how doctors work, but whatever he was there instead of the usual person that I saw. And that young man was extremely, and now at my age, I'll call him a young man. At the time, I looked up to him a lot because he was a grown doctor, but he was like, oh, you need to stay off WebMD. To me, you don't have any of the signs. Everything's fine. Just go home. So I made it through. That was, I think, a Thursday or something. I made it to about Sunday. My blood pressure was feeling very off. Just my perception of my blood pressure. I had a lot of headaches. I was feeling dizzy. And I went to the ER. I was admitted to the L&D, and lo and behold, I had preeclampsia and had it for a while. And my blood pressure was something ridiculous. I tried my best to hold out and not get an epidural despite being induced. I had to have a magnesium drip, the whole thing. It was horrible. So I ended up having an air quote emergency C-section. Knowing what I know now, I think we could have done different things. But, so my birth dream definitely burst into flames. I didn't get to have that. And it was very just disempowering. And it was just like a blur. It was awful.
I imagine that was really hard because you're a teenager. It's like not only do people just not take women seriously, like grown ass adults, you're a teenager and you had people around you basically being like, haha, this plan is hysterical. Like they're just not taking you seriously at all. So as a mom and as a woman, I just imagine how challenging that was, that you very much felt like you were in a place of maybe not authority, like you were
Oh,
just
yeah.
being told what to do. So would you mind speaking on that feeling a little bit?
Oh yeah, of course. And feel free. Despite being from the South, I'm a fast talker. So feel free to interrupt me if you need to. Yeah, no, I definitely, I mean, that feeling of being a kid when you're like, I know better than people and everything. Now imagine that, but it's like literally about your body and your child. So it definitely felt like the type of energy we give when a little kid is telling us about something. We're like, yeah, sure. But in this case, it was like a life or death, like my bodily autonomy type situation. So it was extremely disempowering and frustrating. And just to go back a little bit, I remember I had a little bit of spotting in the beginning of my pregnancy, and I went to the ER for that. And there was this sassy little male nurse in passing. I heard him say to my mom, he's like, "This is why I don't believe in God, because he would never let children get pregnant." And I was like, great. Like, don't think that's a medically professional to say all that, but it just was like another dig. So I had a lot of times where people were just
Wow.
mean to me. The administrative lady that I checked in with at the obstetrician every time was just bitch to me. Every single time she was not nice. So I dealt with a lot of that nonsense, and people in school like, oh, teachers and staff like, I really had high hopes for you and all this sort of stuff. So it was a lot of nonsense there that was frustrating. It was such high stakes and no one really cared about my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's kind of the challenges of teen pregnancy though, right? And it's so frustrating because it's like, okay, we want to set children up for success and then they make these mistakes and so often, and sorry if this ends up getting a little political. I don't mean to like use your story
No,
as like a
you're
political
totally
thing
fine.
at all, but like so often it is the same people who are saying like, "Oh, I'm Christian, I'm helping so and so," that are like shaming a teen mom for making a mistake, and it's like these are the people who need that support the most.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I know. And that's the thing I love. I'm a pro-life person. I don't think that the government should take anyone's rights away. Just if we're going to be political, I don't think we should ever give them any more power. But I do think that we should educate and support women about the sanctity of life and all those things. And I fully well understood that when I was 15 and pregnant, that I could have made a different decision. I had the bodily autonomy within my family to have made whatever decision I chose to make. I had a friend who she got pregnant at 15 as well. And her family was like, there's no way, like people at the country club like couldn't know about this, very different situations. It was really awful. And I know
Mm.
she had a lot of guilt and shame. And when I got pregnant, she had already had her abortion and she was very much like, yeah, you should just get an abortion, you should just do that. And I think it was from like a place of wanting to commiserate with someone else of like, well, if we both did this, then we would both have this experience. And I think that was really hard. And it's gonna make me emotional to say this, but she was like the best person. Like she was so sweet, and she came to my baby shower. She checked on me in the hospital. Like she was just so sweet. So I don't know. I know it must have been really hard for her to see that. I mean, I guess at times she was probably like, oh my god, I'm so glad that I don't have a baby right now, because it probably at times looked really awful when I was like showing up to school like exhausted and all that. But yeah, it was just, she was so sweet and so supportive. And so I really appreciated that from her a lot. I don't know why that suddenly made me so emotional, but she was so sweet. And now she has a baby and she's a wonderful mom. But yeah, her support meant so much. I mean, it was really nice. But yeah, I feel like that would have been hard for her. But yeah, thankfully it wasn't all bad. I did have a lot of people who were really supportive and encouraging. And my mom was great too. She did so much for me. So yeah, some people were assholes, but most people weren't.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry.
Oh no, I can't, and it's so funny because I've talked about this so many times. That's the first time I've ever brought that up and cried. But I've talked about this so many times that I'm like, I feel like I should be immune, but it still makes me emotional to talk about because it was an intense experience.
No, it is. I think the Holy Spirit brings up things that we need to bring up when we need to bring it up. And I mean, I don't know, maybe there's just somebody listening right now that just needed to hear that because maybe, they were in a situation where they've felt that pressure and they've been around those people and just somebody needed to hear that, and that's why that came up. So I thank you for being so vulnerable.
Oh yeah, no
Um,
problem.
I'll try not to do it again, but I might because
No, no, I'm sure I will cry again.
I always ask prodding
No, no,
questions.
you're fine. And I do want to say on that same note of what you just said about the Holy Spirit thing, I think as well, if you are a woman who has made a decision and you've done something like that, being supportive and sharing your truth with other women, I think is really important. A lot of people they would just not mention that they'd done that. So the fact that she told me about it and she was honest and she told me about the procedure in very great detail. I mean, it was very helpful, her sharing that information about how it had gone for her. So I think if you have done something like that, being open about it, like it's not something that, because a lot of women, maybe had I not known that, I would have maybe made a different decision. But her having shared her experience, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think so this episode is actually going to be coming out the week of June 24th, which I don't know if you know, that's the week that Roe v. Wade was repealed.
Oh my God. Oh no, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that's when this was going to come out. So that I was just looking at the calendar.
That's
No,
ironic.
it's ironic. It's ironic. So I think it's, again, the Holy Spirit is just taking this conversation where it needs to go. But no, I agree with you. I think sharing our stories, no matter how beautiful or ugly, is so
Yes.
important in helping other women make wise decisions. And it has to be done in a way where there's no pressure. And that is hard. Moving on a little bit. So you chose to keep your baby and it was really hard because people treated you like crap and you had this really difficult birth experience. How did breastfeeding go? Like, did you
Oh
wanted
yes.
you wanted a natural birth. So I'm assuming you very much wanted to breastfeed, but what were your thoughts about breastfeeding as somebody who had never done it before versus what actually happened?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that was just a whole lot of fun too. Like a whole lot of stuff happening. So I remember in the beginning, I had to advocate so hard for a breast pump. I would ask one nurse and they would tell me, "Oh, I'll ask someone else." And so I had to finally get out of the bed, barely able to stand up straight, and walk out of my room to the nurse's station and be like, "I want a breast pump. I need it." And the nurse was like, "Really? With everything you have going on, you want to try to breastfeed too?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do. Like, please give me a breast pump." And so they finally got me one. But I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Obviously, like you and I know, they give you the 24 flange, and I'm like a 13 or something. So I know that now, but it was not feeling so great. And I didn't know the settings, and it was of course the Medela Symphony pump, which is like really intense. Not my favorite pump. We won't go there. But I'm not a fan of Medela pumps in general. But anyway, except for their handheld pump. But their
Yes,
manual pump.
yes.
Yes, that's a good one. But anyway, so yes, that was not going well. So I got discharged from the hospital, not being shown how to latch my baby, not being told that I needed to continue to pump. I ended up with crazy engorgement, mastitis at least on one side, certainly not in a good place on the other. And I remember I went to CVS to get something, and there was a woman working there, and I swear that woman must have been 100 years old. I don't know. She was one of the oldest people I've ever seen working anywhere. Very sweet lady. But you could tell she was older. And I dropped something on the ground, and she was on the aisle with me. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, ma'am, but can you please pick this up for me?" Because out of the two of us, I was like, "You're gonna have an easier time bending over. I just have surgery. My boobs are about to explode." So long story short, my mom found that the WIC office had breastfeeding help because she didn't know really what to do either. That's who had helped her with me when I was little. And so we went there, and that breastfeeding peer counselor was so helpful. She was like, "You were going to get this baby latch," and she showed me how to do it. I got them latched on. She set me up with a breast pump, an old school Medela, like I guess pump and style, maybe. I don't know. It was like the size of a boom box, and it was bright blue, and it was so, yeah, not like the pumps are now. And I took that thing back and forth to school every day for my entire junior year, and I got to give my son breast milk, which was so great because for one, it saved me money, which I guess I would have gotten WIC or something, but and it made me feel like I finally did something right. I was like, I don't know if anything else, if we're ever gonna not be broke, or if I'm gonna be able to go to college or any of that stuff. But I knew that I at least was able to give him that, and that was a huge win.
Well, and I think that's so true for so many moms, whether they're a teen mom or not, is after a difficult birth, a lot of times it feels like if we can give our baby breast milk, whether it's breastfeeding at the breast, pumping, it just feels like such a gift that we can give them. And that can be
Oh
such
yeah.
a healing experience in itself when it feels like everything has gone wrong. That's really beautiful that you were able to find that strength. And I just am imagining carrying a breast pump into school every single day. Were your teachers supportive of you like leaving to pump? How did that work?
So I actually, thankfully, being I guess just the bullheaded person I am, I had met so there's a nurse for teen moms who are in school. There's like a public school nurse who's specifically assigned to supporting teen moms, at least in the county I was in. And so I met her during
Did you guys
pregnancy
have
and
a lot of teen moms? Was there like a lot of teen moms?
so at fun fact, at my high school that I went to, I was the first girl who ever got pregnant, stayed there and graduated. The school hadn't been open that many years. It was a newer school, but it was a very like upper crust type school. They did not like that. They did not make it easy. So no, at my school no, but at some of the other schools. So I live in the South, like more of like I wouldn't say like a rural part of the South by any means, but we're not like in Charlotte or Raleigh. It's maybe a not so affluent part of this particular county has a lot of rougher areas where kids are not quite supported. And I think they do have a decent instance of teen pregnancy. But she told me that she's like, they have to let you pump. Like they have to, just like the Pump Act for working moms, you get the same protections. I don't know if that existed back then, but whatever it was, I had the same protections as them. So yeah, I pumped every day during my lunch. I didn't get any additional time. So I had to go and like scarf down my lunch and pump in this little room. And it's funny because they let me pump at first in this changing room for the theater department, and there was this tiny man who was the like orchestra teacher or something, band teacher, I don't know what he was. He was an asshole, but besides that, I would go in every day to get the keys and he would make this big deal about it. He'd be like, what is it you need them for? And I knew he knew. He just wanted me to have to say what it was for in front of everyone in the class. He'd take forever to take the key off, and yeah, he was just such not a nice person. So
That
I
is
hope
so
he's doing.
disgusting.
I
That
know,
makes me
right?
want to vomit.
No,
That,
it was really.
oh,
Yeah, I don't know what his I just now I think it's because he was just a sad person and that maybe gave him a little bit of power. So if that's all the power he got to experience in his life, I feel very sad for him that that's what happened. But yeah, he didn't make that easy. So eventually I got to switch somewhere else because I'm like, this guy sucks. He's bullying me. Please let me pump somewhere else. So I was able to, and it was fine. I was able to pump somewhere else and that worked out well. But it was so funny, like going into the teacher's lounge area because that's where I stored my milk. I got to go in there and I'd put my milk in the freezer, and it was interesting. My guidance counselor, like my senior year, so my son was about he was over 1 years old then. She had just had a baby, and I remember her coming into class, to do whatever they do with seniors, and she's like, hey, I have to ask you this question. And she'd be like asking me questions about breastfeeding and motherhood and stuff, which is really funny. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely not your typical high school experience, but I can say that I graduated with a 3.9 GPA and acceptance into every single college that I applied to,
of
including
course
Duke
you did.
University. So
You did.
so yeah, anything you want to do with a baby, you can definitely do it. But yeah, that's what inspired me to decide to pursue this work for myself, because I knew that if it meant so much to me, that it would mean a lot to other people as well.
I think so many people are told, like if you are a teen mom, you're not going to graduate. Like you said, you're not going to graduate. You're not going to go to college. You're just going to be a failure. And it's like, well, if we call ourselves pro-life, we've got to, and we're supporting this life existing. Why would we not support the mother who's supposed to nurture and nourish and raise that life?
Yeah.
Whether that's finishing school, breastfeeding, any of it. And it brings up a bigger thing for me, which I don't know if you and I have talked about before, but I've got this huge like frustration with the pro-life movement in general, because I am very pro-life, but I feel like there are pro-life organizations do not do a good job of supporting breastfeeding.
No, they don't. I've wanted to get involved in some of the ones near me, but they're very much focused, which is an important part, but they're focused on like, let's do ultrasounds, let's do this, let's have you keep the baby. But yeah, no, all of that holistic care, because we don't want moms who are, not thriving, because the baby is going to grow up and they need to be supported as well. It doesn't stop there.
No, it's frustrating because I feel like breastfeeding and advocating for breastfeeding is such a pivotal part of becoming a mom, right? Like you learn so much about yourself, and I think you grow a lot. And that's not to say that if you don't breastfeed, you don't learn these things and don't grow, but it's an experience that I think is very transformative for a woman. And when we tell these moms who like, kind of like the nurses did to you, like you've got enough going on, you don't need to try to breastfeed on top of it. And I think that's where a lot of these like pregnancy centers attitudes are coming from, if I'm being completely honest with you, because all the ones that I have tried to get involved with are very much from the standpoint of we're going to provide everything that you need, like baby stuff, baby supplies. Like they're providing so much, and that's wonderful. But formula is obviously included in that. And when I try to like, hey, how do we how do we include breastfeeding education and breastfeeding support in this? And a lot of times this is with like nonprofits that actually do have some type of budget for
Yeah.
some things. And it's like, why are we not using some of this budget toward lactation support where they only want to give lactation support if the lactation consultant is willing to do it for free? And
Right.
it's very frustrating because it's like I feel like something there needs to change because we're coming at these moms who are in these kind of crisis pregnancies like you experienced, telling them breastfeeding is nice. That's a nice thing to do, but it's going to be too hard for you because you have enough challenges going on. But that breastfeeding is what literally gave you back your power and really shaped the rest of your life. Look at you
Yes.
now.
Yeah, no, it definitely made a huge difference for me because, like, had I just been, I don't know, it was like a redemptive experience because it literally was a thing that I was like, well, hell, I didn't get all these other pieces, but I was able to get this one piece down. And I felt like, if nothing else, my son's going to have good nutrition. And it was a big win. And it really reframed, I've always been a go getter, like, I'm not going to let stuff stop me kind of person, but it really changed things for me where I was so I don't know, it really changed, like, I think it like rewired my brain feeling like I could have done this right. And I see that every day, and I'm sure you do with the clients that we work with. You have women come to you and they're lost and they're confused and they're struggling, and then by the end of getting good support, it changes. And that's what I always tell people, really, lactation care is not this one level deep thing. We are supporting moms in their ability to advocate, to be sovereign, and to know how to, like, just really be confident. And that's going to make them raise children who are more confident. It's going to make them raise children who their kids are going to have an easier time breastfeeding in theory. They're going to understand
Yeah.
it better, and it's a huge deal. We're very blessed
Yeah.
to get to do this work.
It's so true. My husband and I were actually just talking about that the other night. We were just talking about some business things, and I'm like, people just don't understand how important this work really is. And he said the same thing. He was like, I've realized you're not even selling breastfeeding support. You're literally helping moms learn how to use their voice when nobody else did.
Exactly.
It's if you are listening to this and you're feeling that, like, you've always been told to be quiet, you've always been told you're crazy, you've always tried to be the good girl, and everything's just starting to unravel right now, it's because it's time for you to speak up and learn how to use your voice. I'm getting like off on a tangent. What other insight and advice do you have for moms who are struggling? Maybe there are teen moms listening right now. What message do you want them to hear? What do you want them to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say remembering that a baby is a blessing, I would say, even if it's not the right time that you would have thought. And, you can do anything you can do without a baby on your hip, you can do with them on there. And at this point now, my son, he'll be 17 in like a month and some change, and he has his own very successful business. He has been homeschooled, very much caught that entrepreneurial bug from me. He's a healthy kid thanks to the breastfeeding. Probably never gets sick hardly. Yeah, and so I've, like you touched on, I've built a very successful private practice. We see tons of moms, to the tune of like 100 and something per month. And yeah, so like, if I would have listened to any of that stuff of like, I can't do what I dream of doing because I had a child, like, it was so wrong. And I don't think I wouldn't be the person I am had I not had that experience. And it was so hard, but it was so worth it, because I think sometimes the tough stuff we go through is really what makes us like special and good.
No, 100%. I very much feel the same way because when I was struggling, I was not a teen mom, but I was a young mom. I mean, I was 22 when I had my son and away from family, right? Like I didn't have
Yeah,
support.
that's so hard.
And it was like, it was kind of the same thing, like after an unwanted C-section and everything, and I'm struggling to breastfeed. It was that attitude of, you've tried hard enough, you've been through enough. Why?
Right.
Don't keep trying. And it's like, why can't we just tell people that they can do hard things, and learning how to overcome hard
Yeah.
things is what
So good for
makes you
you.
a stronger person. Like that, it's
Exactly.
okay to struggle. It is okay to struggle, and you can overcome that struggle, but you need to have the right support. If there are teen moms listening, or any moms really, I think this really does go for any mom listening, especially teen moms. What would you say, looking back, you would recommend to a mom preparing to breastfeed who plans to breastfeed, wants to breastfeed, but thinks it's just going to happen?
Oh, you know what I'm going to say. They should hire an IBCLC during pregnancy so that they know what the heck they're doing. I wouldn't say, stay off of TikTok and stay off of YouTube, but you are going to get a million different people's opinions. And if y'all didn't know, social media is pretty much out there to be a marketing tool. So a lot of times they're just trying to sell you stuff. So I would say find an IBCLC that you really trust. Talk to a few. If don't assume, and oh my God, I could go on about this too, but don't assume that the IBCLC who happens to be within a 15-mile radius of your house is the right one, because that's not necessarily the case. Definitely do your research, find someone during pregnancy, understand why it is you want to breastfeed. I think that goes really far. I have so many moms that come to me and they're struggling and they don't even really want to be breastfeeding. So you're not going to have a very easy time doing something difficult if you don't actually want to do it. So yeah, I think just getting support during pregnancy from a IBCLC is so important.
Yeah. And I like what you said, just because someone's within 15 minutes of you or 15 miles, like it doesn't mean they're the right option. Also doesn't mean they're the only option, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
the internet
you work
exists.
with moms from all over the world, don't you?
Well, I mean, so I could in theory, yeah. I primarily do the insurance thing, and so I don't, so much. But yeah, in theory,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
could with telehealth. Literally, you could have an IBCLC from Australia. You'd have a hard time finding a time that lined up between the two of your time zones. But yeah, no, you're not limited by the people near you. You're not limited by the IBCLCs who are in your hospital, and you're not even limited by the ones who are in your insurance, because there are lots of great people out there who have very reasonable self-pay options. Like you, I would say, I feel like your prices are great. I think there's plenty of people that you can work with if you're paying out of pocket. I would say, rather than buying a snoo or fancy baby clothes that they're going to wear for a few weeks, I think reallocating that money, breastfeeding is one heck of an investment. I think it's very good, as one heck of one, as a very good return on investment. Breastfeeding support is very, very important.
No, I agree with you. And I know you kind of have some financial savvy too. So the word investment is like it's a big word for you. But it's so true. And it's like it's not even, I tell people it's not even just a financial investment, because I think it is, right? Like we can sit there and spend $2,000 on a snoo, like you said, and all this baby gear that's probably don't even need. You probably can't even afford, that you're putting on credit cards. But then when it comes to breastfeeding trouble, it's like, oh, well, I'm only going to pay for it if that means if you can guarantee that I'm not going to have to use formula and buy formula too. And I'm like, the return on investment, first of all, if you are still using formula, every ounce of breast milk your baby gets is so beneficial, because it kind of helps.
Yes.
I don't want to say this in a way that sounds so much more dramatic than it really is, but every ounce of breast milk you get helps mitigate the risks of formula, right?
Right,
And
for
then,
sure.
and then even if you do end up using formula, would you rather make that decision from a place of knowing that you have all the
Exactly.
information, that you know that that was the right decision? Or do you want to make that decision from a place of you were pressured, told there were no other options when there were? Like,
Right, exactly.
what are we investing in here? And I feel like when we're investing in peace of mind,
Exactly.
like it's just
That's
the
invaluable.
it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
The cost of breastfeeding support. Oh my gosh, it's not even a dollar for dollar comparison to formula, in my opinion. Like
No, it's
we could sit
not.
there and do that math and say, well, you could spend $1,500 to $3,000 a year on formula, but okay, you could, and you could spend the same on breastfeeding support and then still not be able to breastfeed. But if you could do that, and I'm not saying people need to spend $3,000
Yeah.
yeah, like I am not saying that, but I'm saying, like, even if you spent the same amount of money, like what you get when breastfeeding works is it's more than calories, right?
Oh
It's more
yeah,
than
for sure.
calories, and when you're putting that much money into formula, it's just calories. So that's
Yeah.
my little spiel on the return on investment for breastfeeding support, because it's just, I mean, just like we've already touched on, it's more than just food. It is strength, it is power, it's connection, it's
Yeah.
health, it's future health.
No,
Yeah.
and I think it's so important to say too, for moms who maybe are like, oh, well, I know I want to use formula for something or another. We help with that too. And because I think just you're a lot like me, and I know not all IBCLCs are that way, but I want a mom to make a decision that's empowered. And if that decision is something else, then I'm here for that. Because as we've touched on, really a mom who's empowered and makes confident decisions and understands why she's doing what she's doing, it doesn't have to be, very few of us are hitting like on optimal in all areas of our life. So IBCLCs help with all the things. I just don't want anyone who hears that and be like, well, I want to use formula. Maybe an IBCLC
Yeah.
is not for me. Yeah, we support everybody with all the things.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. I completely agree with that, because I think the majority of the clients who come to me are using formula already. And
Right.
their goal a lot of times is to reduce how much formula they're using. It's not
Exactly.
always
Yeah.
to stop using formula.
Yeah.
There's so many different goals that we can have, and we can support you in your goals. We can share our opinions if you want to hear them. And but that's what it comes back to, right? Like finding somebody who can align with your goals. And that doesn't mean that my
Exactly.
goals align with your goals. It means that I can align myself with supporting your goals. And
Exactly.
I know you're a lot like me in this situation too. Is like you answer to the moms you work with. You're not answering to this like corporate entity. You're not answering
Yes.
to a physician. You're not answering to somebody else who's trying to have a place of authority over these moms. You're trying to walk
Exactly.
alongside them and answer to them. And
Exactly.
I think that is such an important distinction in the kind of care that we provide. So if you don't know how to decide if a lactation consultant's a good lactation consultant, it is really hard. I'd say figure out who they answer to.
Yeah, exactly. And the language that they use and all of those things, definitely. Because that's like, I'm in service of the mom. And that's a beautiful thing about working with moms virtually. I don't have to care if I piss off somebody's pediatrician. And then when I saw clients in person, and I've seen so many IBCLCs, they don't want to, try to say something that goes against the pediatrician. I don't care who I piss off, as long as I'm not pissing off the mom. Like that's, yeah. And just like you, like we're in service to them. And that's so, so
Yeah.
important. So I completely agree.
I know it's so funny because like working with people locally, I know a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I get so many referrals from this pediatrician, I can't piss them off. And I'm like, even
Eh,
locally, like I will vocally say, I told my husband when I was supposed to start working at the hospital and then didn't, but I told him, I was like, I'm going to be fired within the first month. Like, you know that, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm going to be fired within the first month. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because I don't mind pissing off the pediatrician.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've kind of got that, like, we're going to piss people off, but that's okay because it's okay to piss
Yeah.
people off. And if people are pissed off, it's their problem. And it's probably saying
Exactly.
a lot more about their weaknesses than ours. So
For sure.
if you have gotten nothing else out of this conversation, whoever is listening, it is that it's okay to piss off your doctor.
Yeah, right. If that's all they take from my story, then that is totally fine. Yes. You are not beholden to your doctor. You're not supposed to be a good patient. You're supposed to be an empowered mom. Like you're supposed to feel good about being a mom. Yeah, so yes. Don't listen to them if you don't want to.
Oh my God.
You do what you want.
I love it. Amber, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and just your spice and your fire, and you're just so inspirational. And I know there are so many moms out there who maybe do want to use their insurance benefits for lactation care. So how can they find you if they are looking for somebody who works with their insurance?
You can check out get.thelatchlink.com, and there you can find all the information. At present, we work with Cigna, UHC plans, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield and Anthem PPO plans. But I do have to say, obviously, Jamie, I have been in private practice for a while. I've worked with tons of moms. I've seen a lot of IBCLCs, and I think you're absolutely fantastic. So if any moms are on the fence, if it comes to that, like you said, pick who aligns with you, but don't be afraid to dip into your pockets a little bit if you find someone who works and they don't work with insurance, because you are great. And I think any mom listening to this would be so blessed to have you in their corner.
Well, I appreciate that so much. And for those wondering too, a lot of times you can still get insurance to reimburse you when you do pay out of pocket. I know not every plan does that like they're supposed to, but a lot of times, especially if you have a PPO plan, they usually reimburse
for sure,
out of pocket charges. So there are always options, and that is what we want you to know. There are options, and we are two of many options. Thanks again, Amber. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.